tell my daughter, show me how to get on the Zoom.
Oh, nice.
Well, I didn't quit. What? Are you still there?
Yes, we're still here. I was just turning the recording on because it's 4:30.
Yeah, and I had to, yeah.
Well, I was going to say I went to the fitness center and came straight home. So it was blowing, but it wasn't doing anything else. I'm scared to death of Thursday.
Oh, yeah, that's when we're supposed to get a lot of,
Bad weather.
yeah, I'm trying to get my toolbar to come back.
Hmm.
I see the numbers here. Hang on. I lost my Zoom. Let's see.
So we're waiting. Oh,
Judy?
I'm trying to get yes.
Chris is signing in now,
Okay.
and we have 6 members present down here, so we're well over the threshold of a quorum. And
Yeah,
now
we
Robin
are.
is signing in.
And it's 4:30. I lost my toolbar here and I was trying to get it back here. But I can. Yeah. There, I think I got them. Okay, I got it. I got it back. Yay. Okay. So I think we actually can get started. Is Cheryl there?
Present, madam.
Very. I should have left it up to you to do the do the roll call. But yeah, okay. So I'm glad that we have so many here. This is wonderful. We will go ahead and start the meeting, and the recording's going. Meeting is called to order for our first meeting in January. So if you would be so kind as to start the roll call, Cheryl.
Be my pleasure. Okay, Doris. Doris, are you present? Okay, for now, she's not here. Ray,
I'm here.
BJ Carroll,
Here.
Craig Edens will not be present, and Louise Edens not present.
I did
Madeline.
talk to her. She's going to try.
We'll look for Madeline.
I'm here.
Thank you. Robin Gosney,
Here.
Chris Jones,
Here.
Judy Jones,
And I'm here.
John Norman is present.
Yeah, good, John. Yay.
Monette Parton,
in.
Woohoo.
Dick Phillips,
Here.
Valerie Rose,
Here.
Dave Stevens.
Hi.
Present, and Daniel
Yes. Mia.
present. Anthony Whiteside not present. And
Oh,
Brad
this
and
is-
Cheryl are here.
Are here. Yeah, very wonderful. We've got a fantastic, almost full house. That's great. All right. Do we have any guest speakers today?
None at the station and none that I
None?
see online.
Okay. Any public commenters? I'm writing instead of looking in the participants list, but I take it we have none, right, Brad?
Yes.
Okay. None there. All right. So let's go ahead on the meeting minutes for December. Are there any additions or corrections on those? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I so move,
And that is, who is that?
BJ.
Thank you,
Carol.
BJ. Any seconds?
I second.
Okay, Robin, right?
Robin. Yes.
Okay. All right. So it's been moved and seconded. The minutes be approved as submitted, the December minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Okay, minutes are approved. Moving on. Gosh, there I see in here a token of appreciation for CAC members. That was kind of a nice surprise to see. Who's got that?
So I'll take that, Madam Chair. So what we've got is first, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, for participating in the CAC, especially on days like today where the weather's not great. But everybody, is really good about participating and being involved. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. And that I wanted to let everybody know at next month's meeting, so we can make it we weren't able to really have a Christmas party meeting this year. So I thought maybe we could do like a Valentine's Day meeting where we have maybe people bring little snacks, or little something we'll bring waters or something else for people to drink. But at that meeting, we're going to have cups for everybody, to celebrate that celebrates our 30th anniversary of Skagit Transit, but we're going to have one for all the CAC members. And so we wanted to tell you guys about it so that we could try to maybe maximize our in-person attendance next month, so that you guys could get this. We didn't want it to be a surprise because, well, then a lot of people might be online. And for those who do need to be online next month, maybe we have inclement weather again. We will either get those to you in the mail or in person. We'll figure out a way of somehow, or maybe it'll be at a future meeting. We'll just wait until March and give them out to people who don't make it to the February meeting. But anyways, we're going to have them at next month's meeting.
Oh, well, that
Pardon me, what did you say they were?
They are coffee cups, that have Skagit Transit's 30th anniversary on it, right?
I
Oh, it
like
just
that
says,
very-
sorry, it just says Skagit Transit on there.
That's okay.
That's very thoughtful. And that coffee
Very.
cup will run a lot of mileage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At my house.
So since it's a Valentine event, can I bring my sweetheart?
You may bring the yes, the special events coordinator.
And he can bring his, huh? Okay. I think that's very thoughtful. Thank you so much. Any more comments for Brad? I think that's wonderful. Okay, moving on to the I won't say the elephant in the room, but actually we are going to discuss the bylaws. Now they have come into 2024, and we need to talk about some proposed language. What we had submitted was really good. It had to go through legal, and there was a bit of correction needed on that. So I've been working on that with Crystal and with Brad, and he and Cheryl have put together proposed language we're going to discuss. So who's got this section?
I'll be reading this section for us. And for all of our CAC members, the process, especially the new ones, the process by which we change our bylaws is we introduce and then agree on language in one meeting, and then it has to be voted on in the next meeting. So it's a 2-meeting process for us to change the bylaws. So that's why we're doing it the way we're doing. And so here is the suggested language to the CAC that we have come up with. And this will replace paragraphs 4 and 5 in the section 3 of the bylaws. That's what we were previously modifying, was those 2 paragraphs. And it starts with: The CAC members are expected to regularly participate in meetings. The CAC must meet a quorum requirement, and excessive absences can interfere with the regular functioning of the committee. As volunteers, it is understood that other events can interfere with attendance from time to time. An unexcused absence is any absence not reported to the committee chair or staff liaison. Members can get absences excused by communicating to the CAC chair to request that an absence be marked as excused. Any member with more than 3 unexcused absences or 6 excused absences in the prior 12 meetings may be recommended by the CAC chair for removal from membership at any time by a vote of the committee when a quorum is present. The chair shall report all unexcused committee absences and recommendations for removal to the committee and liaison. The committee liaison shall submit recommendations for removal to the Skagit Transit Board of Directors, which will consider and vote on any such recommendations at their next scheduled meeting. The decision by the Skagit Transit Board of Directors on a committee recommendation of removal of a CAC member shall be final. The purpose of member removal is not intended to be punitive, but meant to maintain an accurate and consistent quorum for conducting committee business. Reapplication for future committee membership by any member who is removed is welcome and will be considered. So that's the end of it.
Brad, can you share that so people at home can see?
Oh, yes, I've got it right. Let me, share my screen. If I do this, can people at home see it?
Let me see.
Is anybody seeing the 2 paragraphs of writing?
No.
Okay,
Oh,
hold on here.
yeah,
Let
I
me,
participate quorum, any member with more than 3. Yeah, I'm seeing it. It
You're
was
se-
an attachment email.
it was sent out via email, but I'm
Mhm.
trying to share it on the screen right now for
But I
anybody.
mean,
Yeah,
you
I
don't
got
have
it
the
by
file where you can share it?
Yeah,
I got it.
I'm trying to do that right now, Judy.
Okay, thank you.
There it is.
Oh,
There you go.
boy.
Oh, okay.
There it is.
All right. Well,
So
can I
while
ask a
while the folks online are reading this, I'll just give a little background. We wanted to talk in this language about excused absences and unexcused absences. Unexcused are when we just don't hear from folks. And we felt that, people should, be communicating with the chair when they're absent. But we also thought that we should put in a threshold for excused absences because we do have a quorum requirement. And, if there's a lot going on, people have lives outside of the community advisory committee. And if something's going on that prevents you from participating, then maybe it's time to step away from the CAC a little bit and then come back in 6 months or so when life has calmed down for you.
Mhm.
And so that's why we put in about there's unexcused absences and excused absences. Is because
Well,
there's a lot that can happen in life and we just wanted the bylaws to reflect that.
sure. Well, what if a person's hospitalized? Are they automatically bumped off or
No.
do they just back when they get well?
So for instance, when something happens, and you can't let us know ahead of time, and
Mhm.
life happens that way, well, there's 2 things going on. Number one, if we don't see that you are at a meeting, if somebody is absent from a meeting, then we contact them and find out, or it's really good for the member to try to contact us. Now, if you're hospitalized and you don't have that kind of an access, as soon as we can find out anything is when we figure out, what's going on. We don't have any kind of like a time deadline. Like if we haven't heard from you in 3 days, we don't have anything like that going on. It's just we need to know what's going on. And so for some reason, like if you end up hospitalized, have a family member let one of us know, either me or Brad or Cheryl, what's going on. Just have somebody call. And then all of a sudden you have an excused absence. That's not a problem. The way to avoid unexcused absences is stay in touch with me or with Brad or Cheryl.
Okay. Well, yes, you would try to. Oh, Lord.
Or like have a family member call or a friend
Oh, yeah,
call or, somebody.
Sure. Try to work that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any confusion on the unexcused and excused absences at this point?
I think that's pretty clear, pretty clear, excuse me. It sounds like an unexcused absence is one in which no phone call has been made to say that it will be an absence, whereas an excused absence would be one that someone called and said this person won't be able to make it to the meeting because of whatever reason. Is that the only difference?
Sure. Yeah. So, and it doesn't matter, if it's beforehand, that would be the ideal situation, but life doesn't always work that way. Like if you were planning on coming in on the bus to a meeting and then you got home from wherever you were and you found out your toilet flooded the house or whatever, and you're getting that all set up and you're like, oh my goodness, it's 5:00. I missed the meeting. Then you call in the next day and say, like call Brad or call me and say, oh, wow, I couldn't.
This is what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, we try to make this so that it's as flexible as possible.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad, this is Valerie. I'm glad that, that you said that there's no deadline on this because in an emergency.
Sorry. I had a phone call. I'm sorry. Excuse me, Valerie.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that there's not a dead timeline on this. This is a volunteer commitment that we're making. And if you're in the hospital, to me, that's a really important example because there's going to be a lot of things that have to be dealt with immediately. So, in a serious situation like that, my feeling is that when you or somebody in your family is able to call or email, great. And I'm glad that there's no deadline because sometimes it's just going to have to happen when it happens.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we're trying to avoid the situation where, one of our members was a member and then all of a sudden he wasn't. And then all of a sudden, like a year later, so we're finding out after multitudinous emails and phone calls and disconnects that he's no longer in the area. We're trying to kind of avoid that. And this is the reason, for this.
Yep, and we have had meetings in the past where we, haven't had a quorum make it, and part of that is because, we had 2 or 3 members at the time who were not regularly showing up, and then we had some that were. I mean, that was like 4 years ago, but it has happened to us, and this is just a housekeeping item.
Yeah, just trying to keep things going.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Any other questions for Brad on this particular language?
This is
Madam Chair,
Dick.
Chris Jones.
Yes, Chris?
I probably ought to wait and let Dick respond. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude.
I would just like to move that we go ahead and approve this to move on to its next phase.
That's great that you approved that. I just want to make sure we have any questions out of the way. Seems to me there was something else I wanted to ask about. Oh, okay, I see. I'm just looking back in here.
Judy, we have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so up to, because it looks like it's according to what I'm seeing here, it's up to 6 months that if you're not reporting anything, that you are considered out of the committee. So what would happen if there is like a serious emergency? Let's say, how would you find out? Let's say if the person passed away or something, is there a way that the committee would try to find out, then just dismiss the person?
Well, this comes up to the next thing that we are recommending. And Brad, do you have the information on what takes place for actual member removal? In our bylaws right now, we don't all of a sudden say, okay, we haven't heard from you, so you're gone. It's something that we have to take official action on as a committee, in the sense that in our bylaws now, what we do for member removal is that the liaison, who is Brad, would go to the CEO, who is Crystal Stidham, and recommend removal of a member. Well, now it's being recommended that we change that a little bit to match so for instance, Daniel, when you joined, we voted to recommend that the board vote you in. All we can do is vote on recommendations and take that recommendation to the board. So we recommended you in, the board voted on it and approved it. So in order for removal now, instead of just going through the liaison and the CEO, it's recommended now that we parallel that. Like, as you enter as a committee member, so you would exit. The committee would have to say, okay, there's been 6 excused absences, but that's a lot in 1 year. And after having talked to that member with the 6, just saying, well, is it, what do you think about maybe reapplying because we've got this many absences? Are you going to be able to continue, or would you rather just be off the committee for now and reapply? We'd work that out. But if the person is, needing to be removed, then instead of just going to the CEO, like is in the bylaws now, what we need to do is vote that the person that we vote that the board recommend they be removed, that the board remove them. It has to go through the board instead of just the CEO. Just like when you enter the committee, it goes through the board. Well, exiting the committee also should have to go through the board now to parallel that. That's the difference. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Okay, so for now, we recommended you, the board voted you in. And now, if you were going to be removed, now the only thing that has to happen is the CEO's approval. That is our CEO is recommending that be changed to the board recommending your removal instead of just being removed.
Yeah, Judy,
So
Judy, if I could step in here for a second.
Yes.
So the feedback that we got is that our board of directors are all elected officials for the transit agency, and their normal process at their home agencies or at ours is that if they appoint a member to a committee, they have to be the ones to remove them. They don't want anybody else to have that authority to take them away. And they didn't want to set the precedent with transit and the advisory committee that they can appoint someone, but then somebody else can kick them off the committee for some reason. So that's why we're taking it to the board for removals. And in the past, when we've had members that have not shown up, we call, we email. There's been a couple of times we've sent letters to folks who have not been here in a while, seeking responses. So we do make some a pretty consistent and persistent efforts to try and get a hold of folks. And we would do that in the future before we moved forward with any sort of removal process.
Sure.
Okay, so does that clear it for you, Daniel?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So there's two things that we need to change that's being recommended that we change. Number one is the excused and unexcused absence portion. The second one is how members would exit. They would exit through a board vote in our new bylaws. Okay, any discussion or questions on either one of those facets? Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. Is there anyone who opposes? I mean, we're not voting, but is there anyone who's really against or who just doesn't like what this is? Or are we all in agreement that this language is okay?
It's all right with me.
There are no objections at the station.
All right, very good. So then from forward then, as I understand it, as you said, Brad, the 2024 bylaws will be written up with the current language that's recommended. We will vote next month, and then it will go to the board for the board to actually vote approval. What our vote is the recommendations of the board vote on it. And then the board gets it and votes to approve it. Okay, any other questions? Brad, does that sound good enough?
Sounds good here?
All right. Okay. All right. Very good. Well, without further ado, then let's go ahead and get that written up into something we can vote on next month. Sound good? And could we actually, well, I guess that will come out with our agenda in February. I just didn't want it coming in too late so that we all could take a look at it. You know, there'd be time to look at it. And then for our print readers, Brad and Cheryl, will you be sending out this proposal to our print readers?
We certainly can, yes.
Okay. Okay, that would be great. All right. Okay, sounds like we took care of that. Next, we are going on to the February long-range planning. And who's got this?
This one is for me. So
Okay.
I wanted to let the CAC members know that we'll have a need for volunteers next month. I can't give you exact dates and times just yet. Oh, and Doris is in the waiting room, and I just admitted her into the meeting. So she's coming in.
Oh, good.
So let's give her just 1 second to sign in. Hi, Doris.
Hi,
We are just starting item 7. We just moved over to it.
great.
All right. So next month, there's going to be a need for volunteers. So as I mentioned last year, we have a long-range transit plan going on right now. And as part of that, we're going to be reviewing all of our services. We're going to be hosting some public meetings to try to get public feedback. And that will start in late February. I was hoping that once we have dates and times lined up, I was going to distribute those to the CAC members, and it would be nice to have some volunteers to show up. You're all welcome to come and give us your feedback. But also it would be nice and a good exposure for the CAC if, as the public shows up to these meetings, there's somebody there to greet them and say, welcome. I'm Doris. I'm with the Community Advisory Committee. We're so glad you could come and talk about public transit today. And that's just a nice way to start off for anybody who wants to come in and give us information. These public meetings will be held on different days of the week. Some of them will be during the day. Some of them will be at night. Some of them will be on Saturday. So, it'll be a variety of times that we'll be doing this and various locations throughout the county. So we usually have one in Concrete. We have at least one in Anacortes. So we get out there, and then Cedar Woolley usually has one as well. So there's a variety of times, dates, locations.
Cedar Wally.
Oh, yeah, I called it Cedar Wally.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it. And then also I got to give you all a little bit of homework. So I'm going to have the consultants dialing in next month to next month's CAC meeting. And what they're going to be looking for is feedback from you about what are some service improvements or things that you would like to see changed about Skagit Transit. That'll probably take up the largest amount of our time in February's meeting, is this initial kickoff of getting in all this public feedback into our consultants. We've been working with them, giving them a lot of ridership information, on-time performance stuff, maps, other studies, those kind of things. So they've been getting a lot of this sort of raw data in, but then now we're going to be starting to work in the human feedback into this system. So that starts next month. It certainly doesn't end next month. I don't want anybody to think that either. Yes, and I agree with you, Doris, about that in the text. So there's that. So that's what's going on with this particular item on the agenda. That's what we've got coming up next month. And we'll be sending this out via email and then also calling as well. And of course, you're welcome to show up to any of these or all of these, not only as the door volunteer, but, to also come in and register your opinions. And that's all I got, Judy, pending your questions.
Okay, thank you. I think I was actually this chatty speech on my phone. I was trying to look at the chat, the message that was in the chat from Doris, and I didn't quite see it. But one of the things on the
Judy, it's really simple. I suggest that if you could ask, what would you like to see changed or offered by Skagit Transit?
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. One of the things too, Brad, I was wondering, and this is kind of another, I guess you could say, housekeeping or something, but for the CAC members that are going to be greeters or there, anything, is there any kind of a little badge or something that we could wear or have? I know that we've created some for the table staffings whenever we do it, and I have those here. We could either use those, or if Skagit Transit has, some little lanyard or something they'd like us to wear. That way people would come in and they would know that, oh, these, there's something about these people that represent Skagit Transit.
Yes, we'll have some cards that just say Community Advisory Committee member on a lanyard.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, our little sheriff's badge there. That would be good to have those. Yeah. So that, in fact, if they've got a question, they would know who to come up to if we're all kind of milling around and, this kind of a thing. Okay. And then for a lot of these improvements and everything, I take it that what's already gone to the consultants has been culled from one of the resources being our minutes and our discussions. Is that correct?
No, they haven't gotten anything from you guys yet. What they've
No,
been
I mean,
getting... Go ahead.
So I'm hoping that you are taking information from our minutes as, you know, as we've talked about and discussed, that you're taking those things and furthering those on, are you?
No, I haven't, not yet. And we're
Okay.
about to get a train here. Hold on. Okay. Okay, the worst of it is over, I think. The train engine
Okay.
has gone by.
All
So
right.
no, we haven't done that yet. I want them to hear from you guys, directly.
Okay. So what was going through my mind when you were talking about that is, you know, I was going back in my mind over all the minutes of stuff we've talked about, the recommendations, and I can hear Doris talking about the light rail and Linwood and all this stuff, and talking about how we need more efficient. I think the co-op was mentioned at one point. You know, I'd have to go back into the minutes and look at all this stuff, but recommendations that people have had, if we can all go back and look through our minutes and do some things and just sort of put these together in a list that we can have ready to bring forward to the consultant at our next meeting, that would be good. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look back through minutes at stuff we've discussed and just sort of get a list together. That will be my homework anyway.
And for those who are not aware, on our website under the CAC page, we have all the minutes from last year. You can go in and access them and read them.
That's good.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Brad on this? Okay, we're getting
So
into
am I-
staff report. Oh, excuse me, Banette.
That's right. So if I'm understanding this correctly, we're going to have a consultant who is employed by Skagit Transit to talk about service at the February meeting.
Yeah. Sorry, yes, these will be the consultants that are under contract to us. They will zoom in and be a part of the February meeting.
Okay. All right, consultant at February. All right, so they're just going to listen to us discuss it, or are they going to take recommendations?
So, they're gonna take your recommendations or your requests. And what we're doing at this point is we're trying to assess what all the different requests are from the community. You know, like we've been hearing from Guaymas Island folks, we've been hearing from folks in Anacortes. We've heard a lot about frequency needs in Central County. Doris and others have talked about, you know, how do we better connect between here and down south? You know, so they want to take all of this stuff in, because later this year we're going to come back out. We're going to have more meetings that'll probably be done by our staff, not the consultants. And we'll have a list of proposals, service proposals to go through and rate. And our end goal at the end of this long range transit plan is one of the things that we want to produce is a prioritized list of improvements. So as funding becomes available to us, we can say, okay, what's the highest priority item for all the, you know, from based on public feedback, based on resources it would take, based on the amount of ridership we think something would generate, all those different factors. We're going to have that list and we can start going down the list and making those projects reality.
All right.
Okay, any more questions for Brad on this? All right, we've got the ridership update.
Yes, and there was a request for some information on some specific routes for 2023. I'm still working on getting my annual breakdown on all the individual routes. I should have that later this week, and I'll email the individual route information out to the committee once I have it. But I do have the top line numbers for how we performed last year. So last year we had a 20.1% increase in fixed route ridership over 2022, and our paratransit numbers were up 23.1% over 2022. And I can give you the exact number here in just a second.
And you said 22% for the fixed route?
20.1%.
Oh, 20.1. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So, and we had a total of 452,091 rides on fixed route in 2023. And our paratransit service provided 65,767 rides in 2023. So those
Okay.
were the overall numbers, and then I'll have a breakdown a little further of how that all broke down by route.
And I missed all of those because my daughter tried to call. So Chris, I hope you got them.
I did not, but we'll get them when he sends us. Stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that, Brad.
Oh,
Okay. Any questions for Brad on that? So I guess I'd say, so I'm sorry to do this, Brad, but could you mail me those numbers in email and I'll make sure they get in the minutes?
Sure can.
I apologize for that interruption. Any questions for Brad on that? Okay, if no questions. Oh, Minette?
I was just going to say it sounds impressive.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good year over year jump. You know, we certainly are we're only about 63% or 65% of pre-pandemic levels. So we need a, couple more strong years like this to kind of help us recover back to those levels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next we get to welcome our newest member, Daniel Kiangu. We are so glad to have you on board. And I usually give a call to talk, and we've not been able to connect, but I will definitely do it. We will make it happen. And you're working full time during the day, right, Daniel?
During the night, yes.
At night?
Yes.
Oh, I see. What? Well, you know what I'll do is I'll message you and find out what the best time is to give you a call, and I'll just do it.
Sounds good.
Okay. And we are so glad to have you on board. I'm excited. Do you have any questions at all of anything you've thought of for the CAC at this time?
I think questions will come as we move along. So we find out things. Know that I'm pretty new, so I'm trying to study as well what's going on.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. We're glad to have you on board. Okay. Now on the how service is going with the added 513 and 615 service?
Yeah, so January 2nd, the western part of Skagit County got some service improvements. So the Route 615 and 513 previously both operated every 3 hours because they shared a bus. We added a second bus out there. So then the Route 513 would operate on an hourly basis, and the 615 would operate every 2 hours, much like it used to do, or much like it did on Saturdays. Saturdays, it had 2 hour service in the past. So now it's out there. We've gotten some good feedback so far. There are some customers who are having to adjust with the new inner lining that has occurred on January 2nd. So the Route 513 interlines with the Route 101 at Chuckanut in Burlington. And so some folks are getting adjusted to that. And then the routes 204 and 207 here at Skagit Station, they didn't change their schedule and they didn't change their routing, but those two buses now interline. And we did that so that residents from the majority of Mount Vernon can now have a one-seat ride to get to Walmart. So if you're the 204 covers a lot of ground in Mount Vernon, so you can hop on that bus somewhere when it comes around, and when it comes to the station, it becomes the 207, and we'll go to after that out to Walmart. And so you don't have to do that transfer of buses anymore. Yeah, your grocery bags can stay on the bus. You don't have to move them across the bus island anymore. So there was that one. And then also the routes 208 and 202 are now interlined. So we were getting some complaints from some of our drivers that there were parts of the week where the 202 was busy and they weren't getting any breaks. And so we want to make sure that our drivers are taken care of. And that they always have the opportunity to be able to get out of the seat and go use the restroom. Both of those routes come into Skagit Station. And so what happens now is the 208, as it's coming south from Chuckanut and it arrives at Skagit Station, it pulls into the 202 slot and it becomes the 202. And then it goes out and it does a run on the 202. And then it becomes the 208 northbound when it gets back to Skagit Station. So that's a connection there. The 208 is one of our busiest routes. It is our single busiest route. But one of the advantages of that is that regularly, no matter what time of day, it always has break time built into it, like clockwork. So that, so that was how we were able to solve that problem that was brought to us by some of the drivers. So that's where this interlining has come from. It's also helped us with some of the efficiencies that we're looking for, being able to move buses and drivers around a little bit in this service change. So one of the things that we were able to do is, we were able to adjust our driver schedules to be a little more efficient. I don't want to take too much time this evening to go into that, but I certainly can if requested. But that's what it's helped us. And so, it's only been about a week and a half or a little over a week since this has started. So there are some folks who are still learning the ropes and learning which buses move and which buses don't. Where we have notices on the buses, we have had extra personnel out on the bus islands to help people talk to customers. We have the rider guides out there. We have a service alerts out on the phone that go out onto the app. So there's been a number of ways we've tried to communicate these changes. So, and with that, pending your questions, that's all I've got.
Yeah, and I know that you actually went out there and did physically, Skagit Transit personnel have been out there physically doing outreach at those locations too.
That's correct. Yeah, on the day it kicked off on the Tuesday, the 2nd, Cheryl, myself, Elio, we all took a transit center and stayed out there for the mornings. And for the most part, we had a very good response. There were some people that had questions. They weren't really upset. They were just like, oh, what changed? And once we told them, then they were fine with it. There was only one gentleman here at Skagit Station that was not going to be happy. And he was very honest. He said, well, I'm old and I don't like change, so I don't like it. That's what he told me. So,
well, it is what it is, I guess. Any questions for Brad on any of these interlining or changes that have happened? So my
Valerie,
question,
Valerie has a question.
Yes.
I've been trying to figure out whether I should do this in the roundtable regional or what. I'll just mention it now because it is relevant to these changes. This weekend, I took the bus from Mount Vernon to Anacortes and back, and the driver is an acquaintance of mine. So it wasn't just a random conversation. I asked how things were going, and he said that he and other drivers were very upset by the current changes, the shakeup, how, what the drivers were offered in terms of their schedules, and that there were all these changes that were imposed on the drivers and not explained. And I said, well, you know, he asked if I'd met, if he knows I'm on the CAC, he asked if I'd met Crystal, and I said yes, and I found her very approachable, and that she has stated she has an open door policy, and has he considered going in and talking to her? And he said, oh, and that he or the other drivers, and he said, oh, we can't do that. We're afraid we're going to lose our jobs. You know, this is a right to work state. You can get fired for anything. And I reminded them that Skagit Transit is continuing to be short-staffed, and it seems really unrealistic to think that someone would be fired for asking, hey, I don't understand this, could you explain it? But, and maybe this is just his, and he doesn't tend to be, you know, a particularly irrational person. I was very surprised and disappointed that it sounded like there was a big communication breakdown, and it sounded like it was not just his personal response to the situation. So then he changed the subject. And again, he was responding to my request, and you know, we have a friendship there. So it's not just a random driver randomly complaining. But that concerns me that there's a breakdown in communication between the drivers, and Chris appears to be. And Crystal, who my contacts with her have been very positive, and she seems very approachable. So was definitely related to the, let's see, interlining. That apparently, according to this one driver, there's drivers who are not pleased about that and felt blindsided by that. So I don't know if there's anything you know about that, if there's anything that you can say about that. I just wanted to pass that along because it was part of my experience.
Thank you, Valerie, for those comments. That is a known issue. There are a number of drivers who are upset with the driver bid that came out this last time. And that is due in part because we need to find some efficiencies in how we have been doing business. We were able to eliminate a driver position. Normally, when we do a service change like this last one, we would have to add 2 bodies. But with the efficiencies we were able to gain by interlining our buses, we were actually only needed to add 1. And so that helps the agency become financially a little more stable. It also enabled us to reduce the cost, or reduce the number of coaches needed. We would normally have gone from 22 to 23 coaches in service, and we were able to stay at 22 coaches, even though we were adding a full-time bus on the street. And so, you know, it was a tough adjustment for the drivers. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You know, the drivers' shifts had not changed in years.
Oh,
There was a steady shift. This was, you know, it was all kind of had set up and everybody knew what was going to be there. And then this time came around, and we really had to find some efficiencies because, as everybody is aware, we're having a lot of vacancy issues, or absenteeism, where we don't have enough drivers and we're having to cancel routes. So when you can find a way to save a body in your scheduling, that can make a big difference to how many routes get canceled over the course of service. And it is a disruption. We are hoping that drivers will kind of get to like this system a little bit, but we'll find out. And one of the things that we have told the union is we will be surveying drivers in late February to find out their opinions. on how things are going. Once they've operated these new shifts for a while and gotten used to driving them, then they'll really be able to tell us, okay, this is something I like, this is something I don't like. Could we try and change X? And we are going to look at incorporating some of those changes in our May bid. But yes, there are a number of drivers who are not happy with the current shifts.
Thank you for that information, Brad.
Dave?
Yeah, it sounds like they might have just been not happy with I don't know if I can say, it sounds like it might have been a surprise, like, oh, this is what's happening. Like if they felt blindsided that maybe there wasn't enough communication, maybe on how this was coming down. I wonder.
So the drivers were, the information was shared with the union the first week of November, and bidding for the new driver positions did not start until December 11th. So there was almost 6 weeks where drivers would be able to look through the information. It was put out in the driver break room. If people asked for copies, copies were provided. We did make 2 rounds of adjustments based on driver feedback after the information was distributed. And so it wasn't that it was just introduced and there was nothing. So, there were 2 rounds of changes to it, but that is still where we are. It is dramatically different than what they were driving before.
Okay.
Dave, you have a comment?
Like Larry, how many of them actually knew the routes they were going to do? Or did somebody take them out and show them or what?
So the question was, did the drivers know the routes that they were going to drive? That's one of the reasons we were going so far in advance, is so that we offered training if anybody needed it. There's also some paratransit work that was mingled in with some of the fixed route services. So one of the things we were able to do is we got rid of split shifts. Under the old system, there were 2 buses that drove the 90X, and they would go out in the morning and they would do 1 or 2 trips, and then they would come back and park, and then they'd have to come back in the afternoon and do 1 or 2 trips. And that's hard on drivers to do that split shift. So one of the things that we did is that morning driver, when they come back on the 90X3, they turn their big bus in, and then they turn around and they get a paratransit vehicle, and they go out and they do 4 or 5 hours of paratransit service. And that gives them a solid shift with no split. And then the afternoon driver came in a little early, and they went and drove some of the peak routes, specifically the 207 peak bus, before they had to go out and do the 90X3 in the afternoon. So that's how we kind of worked that in, so that these drivers, we could close out these split shifts. And that's where we got some of the efficiencies in. All drivers know that they can be called upon to drive any route. We have a route guide that shows, or a driver guide that shows all the left rights, and a map with all the time points. And with the new schedules, we also introduced something that's called a driver paddle. So every shift, there's what we call a paddle for it. So it tells them when they report, where they report. They get, like 10 minutes to pre-trip the bus. It's all written down. And then they begin the Route 101. At a certain point, they are supposed to drive to Chuckanut, start the Route 101 at, say, 6:15 in the morning. And then they drive the Route 101, and it tells them all day long what they're supposed to do. And every single driver got a copy of the weekday paddles and the paddles for the weekend shifts. Oh, we're about to get another train. Please hold. So it was an adjustment. There were people who were driving who have not driven these routes in quite some time. In an effort for us to stay on schedule, because we also, Judy, we have another group that it's actually rented this room for 6 o'clock tonight. So we have to
Sure,
make
have to
we-
vacate.
Yeah, but we
Uh,
also have to get Cheryl and I have to have time to get the room back into shape.
Sure, and you want to mention the closure? The office closure?
Yes.
So on Monday, January 15th, that is Martin Luther King Day. And
Yeah.
the Skagit Transit Customer Service Office and the main Burlington office will be closed. But the regular bus transportation and schedule will continue as normal.
Okay, all right. And then quickly, do you want to mention the Ride Free Day coming up?
It's on January 25th, which is a Thursday. This is a great opportunity for people who haven't ridden transit to ride it at no cost. And it's also the day that the point in time count will be occurring. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a national event that surveys of those that are without an address, also called the continuum of care. And that's January 25th, Thursday.
And the time, it's called did you say what time count? I missed. You said a time count?
Nationally, it is called the point in time.
Point in
count.
time. Okay. All right. Very good. Well, thanks for letting us know about that. Any questions for Cheryl there? All right.
And
Yeah.
flyers were sent out.
Okay.
That's the
Send out
national count of homelessness.
Got him.
Isn't that the national count of the homeless?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any connector report on the region awareness? If there isn't, so Valerie, I appreciate you talking about what you did. That I guess could slide in there if we were going to, but I appreciate you bringing up what you did. Is there anything for that or for roundtable? Let's combine those two.
May I ask a question? Does the Skagit, does the city of Cedar Woolley's library have the new bus schedules?
Every library does. We have distributed the new purple writer guides out to all the locations. Valerie is holding up the new purple writer guide.
Great. Well, I will run over there and get it.
Okay, any more questions? All right. Okay. Well, we are at our, if there's no more questions, no further business, does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Anyone second?
Dave Stevens seconded it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned and we're at 5:34, so that's not too bad. Thank you all very much for attending today, and hopefully we'll have a great fun meeting in February.